Hello and welcome to the DevNet YouTube channel. My name is Alexey Borisenko, and in this stream we are going to discuss automating Cisco ISE, APIs, SQL and Ansible in action with Thomas Howard, Technical Marketing Engineer at Cisco. Hi, Thomas.
Hello.
Yeah, Thomas, can you close window because I hear my...
Close the window.
or switch off audio.
Okay, I'll mute.
Yeah, okay, thanks. Yeah, my first question is, what are the most common ISE automation use cases you hear from clients?
Yeah, so we have a lot of different things that we can do with ICE. It was one of the earliest products to implement APIs, REST APIs, even before the open API movement started. So we've been doing this for a long time, and it really started out with people obviously being able to get information out of ICE as well as to configure it. And over the years, we've added more capabilities to control more objects within the product, and also have started to add some things like Data Connect, which really allows you to connect an ODBC client into ICE to query the SQL tables directly. And that's really helpful for doing operational type data if you're wanting to find out about the radius authentications and accounting and who's hitting certain policies and all those kinds of things, which I'll try to show you a little bit later.
Yeah, cool. So I ask our audience, please leave your comments and questions to Thomas in related platform where you can now watch the stream, and Thomas will try to answering this during the stream. And yeah, I know you are going to show us a few automation examples.
Yeah. So the first thing I want to do, let me go ahead and start sharing my screen. And the first thing I wanted to show you was all the resources available to you guys. So what we have is we have just a bunch of different things available, starting with the Iceberg. This is our big encyclopedic resources guide. If you're looking for anything ICE related, start there. That's where we just have literally encyclopedias worth of resources for different documents and things, no matter what you're trying to do with the product. And then, of course, DevNet has that's where we actually host our API references and have some sandboxes for you guys. And then you can get access to those APIs with that shortcut URL. And then I try to host all of the things that I do in our webinars or the code, the scripts, things like that in my own GitHub repositories. And so those are out there for you as well. I'm going to refer to some of those today, but I tried to provide all the different links and shortcuts for you for all the different things that are available. So that's kind of the first thing I wanted to show. And then I think what I would want to do next is let's just go ahead and launch into actually doing some coding stuff. One of the things that when people get started, I always try to tell them is to use curl because it's universally available. It does so much. And the thing I have a problem with is something like Postman is it has so many UI tabs and different screens and things. It's really hard to troubleshoot when somebody has a problem. Whereas with curl, it's just all right there for you on the command line. And so if we wanted to run a command, I guess actually the first thing we'd want to do is go take a look at some of these resources available, like the ICE APIs. So let's go to the DevNet docs. And I wanted to point out something that most people miss out on. So the first thing is we have some introductory things that we go through here. And then if you go into the API reference, this is where you actually can see things like the ERS APIs. This is the original one we did like 15 years ago when we started doing ICE. Then we have some other open APIs, and you can see all of these different objects that are configurable down here. But what's interesting is this API versioning page. People have many different versions of ISE, and we keep adding new REST API capabilities throughout it. And so you can see in this page, we have a list of all of the available REST APIs and what version of ISE they were first supported in. And so right now we're actually on the latest version, which is ISE 3.5. So if I search for 3.5, you can see there's a new one for profiling, because we just had a new profiling feature added. The RBAC catalog for doing role-based access control with your admins, and then Active Directory resource reservation, among others. But depending upon what version of ISE you have, you may want to consult this table to see what REST API operations you can actually do with your particular version. And so beyond that, I think you guys know how to go ahead and look inside of these different open APIs and see things like endpoints or policies, things like that. So the first thing I always like to do when getting set up, whenever I'm testing something out, is I always like to use curl, like I said. And whenever I do that, I have a big markdown document where I document all this stuff. And the first one that I start off with is basically getting the ISE version. This let me know that everything is okay. And you see it's actually a patch command, because when I get the patch information, it has all the good version information right there. And you can see that we're actually using the latest ISE 3.5, and there's no actual patch on this one because it's brand new. There are no patches. But that's a really nice way to start, so that you can just make sure that you know everything's available. The next thing that you may want to do is take a look at the nodes in your deployment. And do something like this. We can just do this one. And these are all really basic, simple GET requests. But I just wanted to show you that, it can be really simple data here with the version and patch, where it can be a little bit more detailed with all the information here. And it can get actually very complex depending upon what you get into. So I like being able to see it like this and be able to parse it and understand it this way. If you want to get into something more interesting, like network devices, then you can do something like this. So if you go into the ERS config, and we could do endpoint. That's another good one. Let's do endpoint. You'll notice that it gives you a total of 199 here, but it's not showing actually all 199. It's maybe only showing 100. So you have to start doing paging. The other thing that ISE does with these older REST APIs is you'll notice that it has this link to some additional details. All it's providing you is a name for the endpoint and an ID. What ISE did originally is it would just give you the really basic info. And then if you wanted to go get more details, you would actually have to do a query for that endpoint. And you would do that by just specifying, the ID. So let's say we get this one right here. We specify the ID. And now you see all the details that we have about that endpoint in a JSON. Now, of course, you can have not only 200 endpoints, you can have thousands, tens of thousands of endpoints on your network. And so for that, that's where I really like to start doing scripting. And so I could show you some of the scripts that I use to really manage this at scale. But are there any questions starting off right now, Alexi?
No, I just want to remind our audience, please leave your comments, questions to Thomas. Yeah, we will try to address.
All right, so then
I have a quick question. You mentioned about scripts. So what do you usually observe, like for network engineers, security engineers usually try to do? They try to write some custom scripts, what they want to automate, or they start to using like some heavy tool like Ansible, or what's the workaround and best practices here?
Yeah. So, that's why I recommend starting with something like curl. I think that's the easy intro. If you want to get more into the automation, which was I'm trying to show you right now, and that's where you do the Python scripting. And the reason for that is because it's one thing to get, one page of information. It's quite another to get hundreds and thousands of these endpoints in this case. And so what I'm trying to show you right now is that I'm going to be running one of my Python scripts that's going to get all of that data and be able to format it in a lot of different ways. And so what we're going to do is, you've seen that I've installed things in my virtual environment using UV, which is sort of the new way of doing things for package management with Python. The next thing I want to do is I'm going to source that environment. So we're going to get into that virtual environment. And then I'm going to source my secrets. So I keep all my secrets stashed away in an environment in my home directory where they're locked down pretty well. And I source those so I can now begin to use those. And then now we can start to run my scripts that require these environment variables. And so what I want to do is run the ISE get script.py. And if you just look at it, I built this script because there were operations that I was doing constantly that I wanted to make a lot faster for myself. And so I built this ISE get script with Python. And this was like, several years ago before all the AI stuff happened. And I know, Alexi, you're a big fan of AI, and I would totally encourage people to start building scripts with AI. And I can give you a template a little bit later on how I'm doing my next generation of scripts with AI as well. I'll give you a prompt for that. So what I do typically is something like this. If I want to, these are all the different options you can see here. But if I want to get my my endpoints that we were just looking at, I could just type in endpoint. Oh, this one's insecure, so I gotta my certificate in my lab is invalid, so I got to do it. Say it's insecure, so it won't worry about the self-signed certificate. But once I do that, you can see it got the whole list of endpoints. Right now, that's corresponding to that first get that I showed you, where it only had the ID and the name. If I want to get all the details, all I need to do now is issue this -- detail option, and it's going to go through, and for all 199 of those endpoints, it's going to get all the details using asynchronous Python. So it's very fast. And what you'll notice here is that it's in a JSON format by default, which is a little hard to read because it's just like a stream of JSON. What's more helpful is if instead of doing that, maybe we did do it let's do it in a line of JSON that's easier to read. So now it's chunked the details nicely into an individual line, or maybe you prefer showing it in YAML, right? So I've got all these different ways of doing conversions and things. So now all that endpoint information with the ID and the name, it's all showing up in YAML. So if I wanted to convert from a normal REST API into being able to use some of these things in a Ansible script with YAML, I now have the ability to do that. So these are some of the things that are really helpful that you can do in it, and obviously at scale when you can do it with Python to iterate over all the pages and format it and do all these wonderful things. All right. Did you have any other questions yet on this stuff, Alexi?
Not yet. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So this script is available along with many others in my GitHub repository for you guys. Like I said, it's using asynchronous I/O with Python, so it's very fast. And I encourage you to, if you're looking for ways to query ISE and get some of this information or network devices or endpoints or users, you can totally do that. The other thing that's interesting with this is there are options in order to show only certain columns. So if I'm only interested in seeing model names, oh, I'm sorry, that's for network devices. If I only wanted to see the MAC addresses, for example, which are right there, I can just say, just show me the MAC addresses here, and it'll leave out all of the other columns, right? So you can do things like that. So that's also very helpful, being able to filter your data that way. And of course, you can apply grep and all the other things. So then once you have the foundation with Python, being able to go to something like Ansible is really the logical next step, especially if you're not really like a Python programmer, but you want to be able to run playbooks and things. that's where it can be interesting, because this is essentially, I like to think of it as programming with YAML, because there are these different objects, basically all the objects that are available in REST APIs, they're now available in Ansible. And so if you go look at the Cisco.ISE collection in Ansible, you can see that we have all of these different objects. So typically let's take a look at, we were just talking about endpoints. Let's go down and look at endpoints. Endpoints, where'd you go? All right, endpoint module. So the endpoint module, this is usually what you use for configuring. And let me make this a little larger for you guys. This is usually one for configuring, and then there's an endpoint info module, which is for getting information. So you can think of it as info for getting, and then the endpoint module for configuring. And then everything kind of has that. You can see these have the info module here. All these have like an info module that correspond to being able to configure it or read the data out. So now we can use these different things. If I look at this endpoint info module, it has all the different options available for you. And usually there's some really good examples down at the bottom for how to call these out. And basically every single one of these is just a function for calling this information. And you have to specify the authentication information, which I put this into environment variables, so I don't have to clutter my playbooks with all this info. But otherwise, you can use it to simply get info about a particular endpoint by the name, or just list all of them out. So that's basically how that works. And so if I were to try and go over to Ansible, let's see if I can do this in this environment. I have a bunch of playbooks. I have Meraki stuff, I have ICE stuff. So I have a whole bunch of different playbooks that I've run. So if I wanted to do, earlier I showed you like that, well, that patch, that doesn't get the patch, that actually deploys a patch. So I'm not going to get that one. Let me see if I can do, let me try and do TrustSec show. Let's see if I can show some TrustSec information. So let me take this, and if I do my Ansible playbook, TrustSec show, there we go. Let's see if this runs. I was having some problems a little bit earlier with some of this. Oh, there we go, it's working. Good. Oh, see, this has been happening to me lately. I don't know why this is happening. But let's try it and see if it doesn't fail this time. No, I don't know why this has been happening to me lately.
Yeah, Thomas, we received the first question from Jason Sharrett.
Yeah.
Do you have a setup cheat sheet for the .wenv/Python environment to run all this from that can talk to ICE?
Absolutely, yeah. So let me go ahead and I can try to put it in another PowerPoint slide while this is running. Hopefully this is actually working this time. Let's go get PowerPoint, and let me do another slide. Now I'm just going to show you the commands that I did. So if I run another slide here, I'm just going to put these commands in, and let's I'll just do it this way. So these are the commands that I typically run to get set up. So in this case, I'm initializing the project. I'm setting up a virtual environment with Python. I'm adding the requirements, which are the Python packages, and then you actually invoke the virtual environment with the packages inside of it. And you do the virtual environment so that you don't contaminate the rest of your computer, because if you're like me, you're working on lots of different projects with lots of different Python packages, and maybe different ones have different versions. And so if you were to try and do this all from your home directory with all these different Python packages, you're bound to mess something up. And so having compartmentalized environments, this is much easier to do. And then, like I said, I tend to use a lot of environment variables, and I keep them in a secrets folder. And depending upon what the project is, so I've got one for DevNet, I've got one for some Meraki projects I work on, I've got some on different ICE projects I work on. So depending upon the environment, you can map in your different IP addresses and your passwords or API tokens and things like that. So those are different things that you can do. And yeah, Alexi?
Yeah, and all these instructions available in GitHub repo? Or...
Yeah, if you go look in my GitHub repository, let's take a look here at my Python script. So I was just running the ICE get script, which is here. If you look down below, I actually talk about in the quick start kind of how I use these different things. And if I use UV, previously in the past I used pipenv as well. So these are all kind of the same. You can see I did pipenv. I haven't updated it with the UV stuff, but otherwise, you know, having these environment variables that you can source from different files is very helpful for different projects. And then you can just start running, you know, verify your environment variables are working, and then you can just start running your different scripts. And I've got a bunch of different scripts I've shown. Here's the ICE get that I was showing you guys earlier. So that's available. And let's go back and check on our, yeah, I'm having problems with my Ansible environment right now, and I didn't have time to troubleshoot it. So the point here is that you have the ability to run, instead of having a Python script, if you're not really a programmer per se, you can go down the Ansible route and be able to do something similar using Ansible modules. So that's something that you may want to consider as well. The other thing we can do is, I just want to check on the time here real quick, is SQL queries for operations. Is that something you want to get to right now, Lexi, or are there other questions people have?
Yeah, let's jump in it.
Okay. So what I want to do then is get back to those ICE Python scripts. And what I'm going to do is I want to run something I call IceQL. I don't know how many of you are you know, database friendly or database type people, but what I have is something I've named IceQL, which is the ICE query language. Effectively, it's just SQL, but it's a play on words for being able to query operational data inside of ICE. And so what we're going to do is we're actually going to run real quick a query for the network devices. So what I want to do is I'm going to just copy a command. So it looks like this. And I've set this up using a feature called Data Connect inside of ICE. And all we're going to do is just real quick show a list of network devices. Let's see if we can get this to work. Cannot connect to database. SSL v3. Okay, it's got that that certificate that's private, so I got to self-sign, so I need to make it insecure again. All right, let's try running it this way. Let me make sure. Let me make sure I have connectivity to my lab. I should be going over VPN to this thing. I'm on Wi-Fi. Let me make sure I've got, yeah, there's the problem. Let me see, make sure I've got. All right. I think that is not on right now. So I don't think I'm on VPN right now. So let me, for some reason, I am not connected. Let me try doing something else. Let's see if this works.
So you use your own lab?
Yeah. So the way I do it is I'm actually connected in to my network through a VPN. So all the stuff I'm showing you is done via an ICE node in a private network. That's where I do all of our lab work. And so I should be Yeah, I
And,
don't have.
for network
Okay, well, that's
engineers, who want to test scripts, we can point them to the NetIce sandbox. Yeah, or what you can suggest.
yeah. So let's do that. What we can do. This is the challenge whenever you do live demos. What we can do is if you go into the DevNet sandbox. So if you go to cs.co/ice-devnet and you go down, you can see we have our YouTube channel listed where we have a lot of the other webinars I've done on this. We have links to the APIs, the Data Connect stuff I was just talking about. And here's where we have the lab on Ansible automation. But once you have that lab, you basically have a full ICE instance. And so you can not only do Ansible, but you could potentially do the SQL queries and things like that. So all that's available to you once you have that DevNet environment. But what I wanted to show people, since I can't show you that lab, what I want to do instead is let me show you, if we go to the ICE-Data Connect site, what you have the ability to do is you can look through all of these different database tables inside of ICE. And so the ones that I think are most interesting, especially from an operational perspective, is the radius accounting. So if you look up here at radius accounting, you have the ability to look at all of the different authorizations that have occurred on your network, and you can do queries and find out how were they authenticated, what device did they come from, what was their MAC address, what policy did they hit, all of these different things. There's just a ton of good information inside of here. And I find this is really helpful if you want to find out how many authentications per second are you seeing across your different network, your different ICE nodes in the network, or how many auths is a particular network device seeing in a given day, or anything like that. So if you're trying to do more of those operational metrics and data, that's where I find this to be really, really helpful using SQL. And for that, I also want to show you, if you go back to my repository, I actually have this folder under data with an SQL folder. And here I've already built a lot of really interesting SQL queries. Some of them are just basic, show me the table kind of stuff. But others get much more interesting. So for example, the radius accounting stuff I was just talking about, maybe you want to see, show me the active radius sessions. And I've tried to document with the different comments kind of what this thing does. And then you see the SQL select statement and everything for how I did it. And then you'll notice that I've also commented out some things, because depending upon how I want to do the query, I can comment or uncomment different columns or attributes. So that's interesting. And then for one of the queries we get a lot from people is, what was the last time we saw a particular endpoint on the network? And for that, I have an endpoints last auth query. And so if you look at that, it's actually pretty interesting, but it just shows you where did an endpoint come in on the network, what was the location, who was on it, how did it get authorized, what device was it on, what IP address did it get, that kind of stuff. We also have something similar for a network device. If you want to know, do I need to remove a network device from ICE because I haven't seen any authentications from it in a while, then you can do that with the devices last auth. So very similar to the user, but now we're looking at authentications coming from a specific device.
Yeah, some thanks. And when you talk about Ansible, you use official Cisco Ansible collection for ICE, or?
Right. So for that, we have, if we go to, let me get the, I'll just say cisco.ice. I've got a bookmark for it right here. You'll notice this is actually located in GitHub. We have all this documentation here. And one thing I will note is we had a bit of a lapse in our maintenance for the modules. And as a result, our collection got pulled out. And so what you can do is we do have, let's go to the Ansible. Ansible, if I can type it, Ansible Galaxy collection for ISE. I think it's in here is where they list it. No, that's not it either. Basically, you need to manually install Ansible into your environment because it's not going to be included with some of the other Cisco packages when you install Ansible. So usually, if I go to my command line, I go back over here to my Ansible environment, and I say Ansible Galaxy collection. So if I need to install it, I can just say install Cisco ISE. But if you just do the regular Ansible installation and you say list, you may not see ISE in the package. So Cisco.ise is missing right here. And so just all you need to do is just go ahead and install it using Ansible Galaxy Collection install Cisco ISE, and then you'll have it available.
Yeah, thanks. We got another question from Poncho.
Yeah.
Do these SQL queries support more complex operation like join and such? If so, which cross-check would benefit from them?
Yeah, so it's just SQL. And so however you want to join the different tables and columns together, that's totally up to you. It's just SQL. So that's something I haven't played a lot with. I'm just happy to get basic data out from the radius accounting logs, right? Or query the endpoints and the network devices. But if you wanted to do a join, you should completely be able to do that based on the different tables and columns.
Yeah, I have some thanks. Also, comment from Jock, very cool. So thanks.
Okay.
Yeah, my last question. What's your vision regarding future of automation? Like we all hear about these buzzwords like MCP servers, like interactions through AI. So what do you think about this?
Yeah, I can tell you that one of the things I'm doing right now is when I write scripts, like all these scripts that I've written that are in my GitHub repository, I hand wrote those, a couple of years ago, and now AI makes it so easy to generate scripts. I actually did it recently, where I actually had a script that I wanted to write, and I just wrote a spec for it. And so I find that being able to do things as a spec, have AI create it, it saves me so much time and effort. And I think what you're going to find is that the prompt is the new script. The prompt, being able to specify what it is you want this thing to do, that's really what your network engineer is going to be able to do. So whether you're saying, build me an Ansible workflow or build me a script to do something, that's really where the network engineer is going to be valuable, because you know what the process is, and you know what your environment is, and you can then use the AI to help you do the automations by building the different components and stitching them together the way that you need it to work for your organization.
Yeah, Awesome, Thomas. Many thanks for sharing this, and
You're welcome.
I hope to see you in the next episode discussing
Yeah.
the following topics.